This show is sponsored by Sevy, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevy is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevy at Sevy, S-E-V-I, properties.com. Again, SevyProperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Gregory Vetter. Greg is the former founder and CEO of Tessemae's, current founder of Alta Fresh Food Company, and author of Undressed, a new book to be released. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. So before we go into your personal and business journey, I like the audience to get to know you as a person a little bit better. Are you originally from the Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia area?
Yeah, I grew up in Annapolis.
Anne Arundel County, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
grew up in Annapolis, went to Annapolis High School, then played lacrosse at Washington College on the Eastern Shore. So have pretty much stayed around this area for quite some time.
So growing up in Annapolis, I know you're a lacrosse player. You know, what were you into as a kid growing up, you know, besides lacrosse, obviously?
All types of sports. Played all the sports you could play. Swam in the Severn River. I grew up in Epping Forest, so it was right on the Severn River. And Epping's a little bit different than Sherwood. Sherwood is the well-maintained forest on the Severn River. The joke with Epping is we were where all the pirates lived. But but just grew up on the Severn River, crabbing and fishing. We had a little Boston whaler, so we were just, you know, terrorizing all the different communities down the Severn River, and then would take it into downtown Annapolis and just have a ball. So it was a wonderful place to grow up.
Nice. So you said you went to school, and what'd you major in school?
Majored in lacrosse. No, I had a.
I'm sure.
I had a business major. So was always interested in doing something in the business world. Didn't know what it was going to be. My dad was in nonprofit work. And so I pretty much had a blank slate to just figure that out for myself.
Okay. But always just had an interest in business growing up.
Had an interest in money. I don't know if it was business. You know, you go to public schools, everybody's kind of playing on the same field or in the same game. And then I played lacrosse in college. And so then I was exposed to actual real wealth. And so I was like, this is interesting. How do these people do this?
Mm-hmm.
So I started interviewing a bunch of different guys' dads on the lacrosse team to just say, hey man, like, how did you do this? This is interesting. And so I knew I wanted to get into the business thing to at least give myself a fighting chance to change my stars, if you will.
That's interesting. I mean, even though in college, I mean, I don't know many college students that were interviewing, you know, hey, what does your dad do, or mom, or whatever. What did you find out? What were they doing mostly as far as their careers?
All different. I mean, some were old money, you know,
Sure.
like 6th generation steel money.
Okay.
Some were new, so commercial real estate in New York City. Some were very complicated, hedge fund manager in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Some were, you know, interesting. I remember one guy's dad just bought debt from other companies. And then, you know, so I was always just really interested and intrigued to see kind of how these different people made their money, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't really know anybody successful growing up. I mean, my dad and my mom are magnificent human beings and did well. And, you know, I feel very blessed to have them as my parents. But in terms of me being interested in business, my dad was like, hey, man, I can't help you here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to have to figure this out for yourself.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. I was a little similar in that way. I didn't have the college friends that I can lean on, but for me, it was mostly just the library, like looking at business books and autobiographies. This is pre-internet, or it wasn't that popular back then. It was just starting off, and, you know, reading about Warren Buffett, or what did he do? How did he accumulate wealth? And, back then their autobiographies were not as popular as they are today. So it was either Buffett or Walton or Trump or something along those lines.
I did the same thing, man. People are always like, "Hey, who was your mentor?" I'm like, the library. I read books about a bunch of different people, and I would get these little tidbits or traits or something that I wanted to apply to myself. And so that was how I tried to guide myself along the way.
Since you were always interested in money, Greg, I'm curious, as a child or as a kid, were you always into some new thing or scheme or something like that? Or no, just basically just maybe working and get some pocket change and money in your pocket?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I don't know if it was about money per se as much as it was about being more interesting than the mediocrity that I saw everywhere. And so somebody told me, money is just, again, I played lacrosse. And so it was like, that's the scoreboard. That's how you track things, but that wasn't really my most obsessive thing I was after. You need to make kind of a baseline of, okay, now I'm quote unquote successful. But in the grand scheme of business or money, I was just very interested in figuring things out. So to answer your question, yes, I shoveled snow. I walked dogs when I was a lifeguard. I was a short order cook. I was a babysitter in high school for kids that regular babysitters couldn't, they were being taken advantage of. So I had a couple parents in Epping Forest that they'd be like, "Hey, my sons are super wild. Can you come over? We'll pay you $20 an hour. We'll leave you food. Just drop the hammer on my kids." And so here I am in high school, and like my most lucrative job I was a babysitter. And I would walk in and I'm just like, I'm not going for this nonsense. So it was awesome. So yeah, I was always doing something. I did embroidered sweatbands in college with the company logo. I was always throwing giant parties in college, probably too many. I got into a lot of trouble. But anything to have fun and hustle and test the limits, I was definitely doing.
Sure. So after college, what happened? You graduate and then?
Yep, graduated. Washington College required you to do a thesis, so I wrote a thesis, and it was a comparative analysis of global commercial real estate companies. So I thought that's what I wanted to do, and I got a job, with what I thought was "quote unquote" real estate finance, which it was, but in reality, it was mortgages, and I was a loan officer's assistant. And that job sucked. And so I learned very quickly the real world is not what you think it is. And if you're going to do anything in this life, you have to take control and you need to basically pave your own way. So I had a series of jobs that I didn't really like. And then I started getting very concerned that I was going to be a complete failure. So I don't know if you know this story, but I would go home every day at lunch and I would stand on my head and I would wait for an epiphany. And I was doing this for months, and I would have a book right next to me. And if I came up with a great idea, I would write down this idea of, what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And then I would go home, I would go downstairs, I would make myself a salad, and then I'd go back to work, to a cubicle, just cold calling. And one day I walked downstairs and this 2-liter bottle of salad dressing that my mom made for me was missing. And, I'm living in a little townhouse. I can't find it. You do not misplace a 2-liter bottle of salad dressing. I call my wife and I'm like, "Hey, did you take the salad dressing to work?" And she goes, "No, I didn't take the salad dressing. Just look, open your eyes." And so I'm like, "I have been opening my eyes." And she goes, "Maybe someone came in and took it." I'm like, "Someone took the salad dressing from our house. She goes, I don't know what to tell you, Greg. Just call somebody. I go, okay. I am going to call somebody. I'm going to call someone I know doesn't eat salads just to prove my point. So I call this guy and he picks up and he's like, what's up, man? And I'm like, dude, random question, but have you seen my salad dressing? And he's like, yup, woke up this morning, was jonesing for it, hopped on the scooter, came over to your house, and now I'm crushing a salad. I'm like, what are you talking about? Can you bring it back? And so I sat there and I'm like, oh my God, this is my epiphany. You know, what kind of man steals another man's salad dressing? And I call my wife back and I'm like, so-and-so stole the salad dressing. She's like, typical. I go, I'm going to start a salad dressing company. And it was dead silent. And then she goes, that is the greatest idea I've ever heard. This is going to work. So that is how I went from a bunch of bad jobs to starting a salad dressing company.
Was your wife serious or being sarcastic there, Greg?
No, she was serious.
Okay.
She was serious, surprisingly. You know, you look back on it now and it's like we were both just, I guess, so dumb. Ignorance is bliss.
Around when this happened, around how old were you?
I was 25.
Okay, so mid-20s. Okay, so you're like,
Yep.
okay, I got my epiphany as a salad dressing company.
Yep.
And then you start.
So then I start cold calling a local grocery store.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get in contact with a person that buys salad dressing. And for 2 weeks, I couldn't get anybody, but I was just convinced that I was either going to get a yes or a no. Mm-hmm. And I had one skill at the time, and that skill was cold calling. You know, I was selling insurance at this point. So my day consisted of hundreds of phone calls a day. So I didn't really worry about rejection. Mm-hmm. One day, called customer service, and they finally say, yeah, you need to speak with James. I'm like, this is my moment. James gets on the phone, goes, bring it Friday at noon, and I'll try it. I'm like, oh my, we're not a company. We don't have a name. I just have this recipe of a dressing that my mom makes. So I call her, I go, you're not going to believe this. I have this meeting. I need you to make the greatest batch of salad dressing ever made. She goes, what are you talking about? We're not a company. What are you going to put it in? I go, none of that matters. None of it. Make the dressing. I'll take care of the rest. So I walk into the store. James, please come to customer service. You have a visitor. And this dude who looks like a former boxer who's not happy to see me kind of comes up. And he's like, where's the stuff? And I have a Tupperware container. And I'm like, hey, it's busy. You know, here's a little salad for lunch. And he looks at me like I'm a crazy person, takes this piece of wet lettuce out with his hand, licks the dressing off, and looks at me and goes, that's the best dressing I've ever had. You need to call the regional office. And so we got a meeting with the regional office. I did the same thing. They gave me 200 pages of paperwork. I Googled my way into becoming a food manufacturer. I didn't know what I was doing at all. We got an opportunity to sell some salad dressing at the grand opening of this grocery store in Annapolis. And I mean, that's another story in itself. It was completely wild. And so then we built that brand for 15 years, and it was wild.
What happened after the 15 years?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of insight to it. So to start, I knew nothing. I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if anybody was interested. I knew nothing. And so we set up a demo table. I've got an apron. I've got these little samples of lettuce. I'm ready to wow the world. And this crowd starts forming outside of this grocery store. Like people are waiting for Taylor Swift or the Beatles or something. And I'm like, what is going on here? And so I think to myself, well, I'm about to find out real quick whether or not this business has any legs at all, or if this is a complete waste of time. And so the doors open and people bum rush this table, and I'm handing out samples. And the next thing I know, there's no dressing left. So I go to the head of the region. I go, hey, man, all the dressing's gone. He goes, well, there's more in the back. I said, no, all the dressing's gone. He goes, you sold 4 cases of salad dressing in 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah. He goes, go get more. I said, I have to go make more. You told me that was for the month. And so he goes, well, go make more. And so from that day to the 5 days where the grand opening kind of died down, we set a national sales record and sold 650 bottles of one dressing in one store of one flavor.
Wow.
And so from there, we just grew, right? We went from 1 store to 4 stores to 18 stores. And we just kept growing and growing. And so then we were selected as Inc. Magazine's 35 under 35. And so then we were up for Entrepreneur of the Year. And so I demoed in every grocery store, every major grocery store in the country. Me, my brother, or one of our employees was standing there handing out samples. And so as this Entrepreneur of the Year kind of personality, popularity contest is unfolding, I'm standing in a grocery store and I'm just trying to hustle salad. I'm trying to hustle lettuce. I'm trying to do the deal. And my phone is ringing nonstop. And, when you're running a company, it's always ringing. We had a manufacturing plant at the time. There's employee issues, you name it, it goes on. Every business owner knows the drill. And so after I'm done hustling all this lettuce, I walk into the parking lot and my wife calls me and I have, I look at my phone, there's 100 voicemails. And I'm like, hey, what's up? What's going on? She goes, you're Entrepreneur of the Year. We won Entrepreneur of the Year. And I'm standing there in a parking lot, covered in olive oil, a bag full of demo supplies, thinking to myself, this is what Entrepreneur of the Year looks like? This is what it feels like? What is going on here? And so we continued to grow and we continued to build out the business. And we were the #1 organic salad dressing company in the country.
Greg,
And
at the point when you won Entrepreneur of the Year award, how many years were you into the business?
we were in the business at that point for probably seven or 8, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I got to check back on the exact year. But it was kind of quick in the grand scheme of things. I mean, you look at these giant, long, sustainable businesses, and if you're doing that in 7 years, that's kind of impressive. But now, also with tech and AI and everything else, these people are, they're inventing algorithms that make them Entrepreneurs of the Year in like 2 weeks. So you look at salad dressing manufacturing, and that took a lot longer to build out and build into something of substance. And so then we were able to grow and navigate COVID and navigate the supply chain crisis. But investors got a little squirrely and wanted to get out of the business. And so we tried to sell the business. And the sale did not go well.
This was after COVID, right?
After COVID, after the supply chain crisis.
Okay.
And sale did not go well. So then everybody basically lawyered up and just started battling to see who was going to basically get this whole thing. And it ended in failure. We basically sold it off for peanuts. It was once valued at over $300 million. And then it was nothing. And we're left there just sitting there kind of reflecting back on how did that happen? What went right? What went wrong? What were the lessons learned? How did we succeed? How did we fail? And so that led to us learning a lot. It led me to write a book, all of the lessons learned, what I thought went right, what I thought went wrong, and all of the impactful lessons along the way. And so now I'm implementing those lessons into the other businesses that I'm in. I'm not just in Alta Fresh Foods. We have a Porta John business now. We have a brand accelerator. We're launching a ready-to-drink alcohol business here in the next 30 days. The list goes on and on and on. And so it's just been a wild ride from we launched the original business in 2009. And so now here I am. I'm involved in a lot of different things, including officially now being an author. So wild times, to say the least.
During this 15-year journey with Tessemae, what was the best year? Do you remember, as far as what was the annual revenue that year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we ended it doing over 70 in sales, but on a run rate to do probably 100. And so we were growing. I mean, we were a large business, to say the least.
Sure.
But with that comes challenges, and it comes a different level of investor, and a different level of complexity, and a different level of greed, and a different level of chaos. And I don't know if anybody is really prepared for that when they take their mom's dressing and take it, into a grocery store and I'm going to change my stars. And it really comes down to how much can you suffer, and how hard can you go, and how long are you willing to fight for this dream of yours. And I guess I look back now, you think things are going to go your way for sure. And they did for a really long time. I don't know if I was fully prepared to understand how hard people are willing to go to take the thing that you built. You always assume there's some shred of empathy or understanding for the original team that did it. But once you cross a certain threshold, you realize it's everybody for themselves.
You were mentioning the investors at one point. I don't know, they wanted to sell. So what happened there that they were saying, hey, let's sell it? I'm sure at that point you probably weren't in agreement with them, right? Or were you, as far as selling?
Well, it was just investor infighting. So we had a bunch of different groups, and they all wanted something different. Some wanted not formal private equity groups, kind of high net worth individuals that are wealthy enough to have home offices. So everybody wanted something different, and they would not agree on what direction to go to. And so we got to a point where it was just the only kind of thing everybody could agree on was a sale.
Gosh, at that point, were you the family majority owners, or no? Did you have to sort of, I guess, comply?
We were the largest individual shareholder, but we had 52 shareholders. So we were the largest group. We had a board. And so, again, you have, as the founder, yes, it's your baby. But then as the CEO and being on the board, there's a fiduciary responsibility to all shareholders. So your opinion almost doesn't matter to a certain degree. And so you voice your concerns, and you look at the pros and you look at the cons, and you listen to everybody's insights, and you say, okay, yeah, if this investment banking group can get us this number and the partner is right, then this makes sense. But that just didn't happen. And so then you deal with the consequences of that failure, which were significant.
What year was this?
2022.
Okay, 2 years ago.
Yeah. And it didn't really end until, because then you just go through the whole legal process
Mm-hmm.
of trying to restructure the business and try and get everybody on the same page. And so I think it all finally shook out. It dragged on for a long time. But the final was just this past summer. Actually, on the 4th of July
Really?
was the final signature that everything is done, everything's over. But it had been going on for a while.
I'm sure we're gonna go into the lessons learned here, but how did this affect you? Whether mentally, physically, whatever it may be.
Initially, it's tough. This is your entire life, your
Mm-hmm.
entire adult life. And so you have to be prepared to have all of your greatest fears realized publicly, which is a lot to process. And I was able to navigate it just through constant daily perspective and gratitude and journaling and reading biographies and learning from people that actually had real problems, that solved real problems. Admiral James Stockdale. You can learn. I read a lot about Colin Powell. I read a lot about former presidents. I read a lot about former generals. I read a lot about Winston Churchill. And you go through all of those areas, and you process that this is this section of the journey. It is not my entire story. It is a chapter in my book, which is my life. I am the writer of this book. And so I choose what the next chapter is. Because I think a lot of people, from a failure perspective, let it define them.
Yeah.
It's almost a scarlet letter. They can't get rid of it. I took it as something, and I think the benefit of being an athlete is I've lost some big games, and those games are played in front of your peers. And so you get used to committing everything to something with being unsure of the outcome, but going in, I want to win. I'm going to do everything I can to win. It's a team sport, so I'm not totally in control here, but that loss does not define my athletic career. It's something that happened. I'm going to have to learn from it. I'm going to have to build from it. I'm going to have to allow it to make me better. I need to figure out what mistakes I made so I don't make the same mistake twice. And so that's really how I got through that. But yeah, I mean, those are tough. Those are tough, dark days in the beginning where you're processing, this is how it ends. I have sacrificed everything for 15 years and this is the end. Oh my, I did not see this one coming. But then I realized, as I reflected, I thought that the salad dressing journey was the whole journey. And it wasn't. And when I realized that it wasn't the entire journey, and that was just a part of my journey, it made the perspective and reflection a little bit easier.
How long did it take, Greg, to sort of, when this happens, like you said, 15 years, it's like your baby, and you need time to process, to heal per se, to you finally sort of snapping out of it and say, okay, like you said, this is just a part of my journey, and what's next on my next chapter.
So how long did that process take?
Yes. Was it a couple months? Was it?
No, it
you immediately
really
start thinking about other businesses and ideas.
Well, one, you immediately need to start taking action. I immediately started taking action. So I wasn't going to wait until the final signature was on the paper
Of course.
to start taking action. The minute I realized and that we made the decision to restructure the business, I then knew there was a giant probability that that business was not going to be paying my bills any longer. So I immediately started taking corrective action there.
Okay.
The other side of it, which actually made it a little bit easier, was that process of restructuring the business is kind of like a loved one being on hospice. You know the end is coming. And so it's not a matter of waiting for a miracle. It's now a matter of saying your goodbyes and celebrating the highs, learning from the lows, and moving on. And so the process gave me time to do that. The immediate reaction, or at least mine, is you want to fight. No, I can figure this out. I can pull off a miracle. I can do this. I can do that. I had done that for a really long time. And so it was, at that point, it was beyond my control. And so then it was a matter of like, how can I continue to give the most to this process for the best possible outcome while thinking through what are my next steps. And so some of the important things that I did was I just looked at the situation with open eyes. You can't look at you can't try and change reality. Mm-hmm. So I looked at it and I said, okay, this is the situation. Now I need to start taking immediate action to set myself up for long-term success, because it's not going to be coming from this. I hired a performance coach to give me a different perspective as well. Maybe I wasn't seeing things correctly. Maybe I was ignoring something. You know, I like to know all of the facts. It doesn't matter if I'm going to win or lose. Like, I need to know the playing field that I'm stepping on. What cleats do I need to wear or not? And so I did that. And then I'm a member of YPO, which is the Young Presidents Organization. So I had a good forum of peers to gain perspective from different industries. So that was really helpful. And then I just started taking all of the lessons that I had learned and that I was writing down, and I started testing them in the new businesses that I was in, and they all worked beautifully, shockingly so. And so then that actually helped with the reflection side, because you go, okay, well, these things were beyond my control. COVID, for an example, the supply chain crisis, for an example. And so then you kind of look at it and you go, all right, so those out of my control, these things in my control, how did I handle those? How did I not? And so again, those learning lessons applied to the new businesses that we're in allowed us to grow rapidly and thrive quickly, which then allowed that transition from one business to other businesses. It allowed it to happen really fast and much easier. And so that's that.
These other businesses, did you form all of them, or is there a partnership with other people, or how did these come about?
Yeah, so it's a mix of me forming them, but with my brothers.
Okay.
And my wife, and in another one we bought into a business. So there's about 7 that we're involved in, and they're all going really well. And we took all the skills and all of the abilities that we figured out and that I figured out, and we learned from our mistakes, and we're implementing them now. And things are going great, and the response to the book has been awesome. And it's interesting because the book is kind of like any other product or business that you would create and develop, which is really surprising. So there's a lot of new wrinkles in my brain, which is really cool.
What are some of the lessons learned in those 15 years, Greg, that you've now brought into these new 7 businesses you're involved with?
There's a lot. I mean, at the end of every chapter in the book, there's 3 to 4 lessons learned. It's a field guide. I have a field guide set up after each chapter of the book. But I would say the biggest one that most people discount is just trusting your gut. I was really young when I was running that business. And so you get a lot of quote unquote experts that like to give you their opinion because they claim that they've been there, done that. I don't know if that was always true. There was a lot of times where my gut was saying, this doesn't seem right. I think we should go this route. And some people would say, well, why don't you sit down, little boy, and let the experts take care of business? And when you're 25, 26, 27, whatever, even in your early 30s, you go, well, I mean, this guy's worth $100 million, $500 million, whatever. Maybe he knows more than I know. And I hope that he does, because I would love for this to be way easier than it is. And so if I can go back and tell my 25-year-old self something, it would be your gut instincts are right. And so now as we apply all of these principles, and there's a bajillion to the new business ventures, the biggest one that I probably harp on is just trusting my gut. And a great example, that's the book cover. The book cover is outrageous. And so I got a bunch of offers from publishers for the book because the story is insane. And I was sitting in my sauna at 4 a.m. and the entire name and book cover popped into my head in a single vision. And I'm sitting there debating with myself. I'm talking to myself in the sauna. I go, that's not the book cover. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be basically naked on a book cover holding a box of salad dressing over my privates, completely beat up with arrows in me, standing on broken salad dressing. But that's not the cover of the book. And it just would not leave my head. And so then I talked to my wife. I'm like, hey, I had this insane vision of what the book is going to be and the title and the cover. And she listened, and I thought she was going to be like, yeah, you can't do that. That's insane. She goes, that's the book cover. Yeah, that's it. I go, really? And then I called my performance coach and I said, hey, man, this is this book cover that popped into my head. And I don't know if I'm going to do it. He goes, that's the book cover. You're doing it. So then as I'm looking at the publisher deals and how we're going to do it and how we're not going to do it, I designed the book cover with our in-house, my guy, Mo Taylor, who's our creative director, who's been with us. Well, we've been friends since we were in high school. We designed the entire book cover first. And when people were giving me deals, I'm like, this is the book cover. And you would watch them squirm. And they're like, no, that can't be it. I think we need to do a cartoon drawing of a roller coaster and let everyone know what a wild ride it's been. I go, not working with you. Thanks. Goodbye. And now when we're on this book tour and we're pitching it and I'm talking to some other authors that have been very successful, it's so funny. Everybody goes, I don't know who designed that book cover, man, but that is it. What a bold move. And so again, that just goes back to the gut thing. Mm-hmm. You want to trust the experts. You want them to be right, but I wasn't making the same mistake again. I knew that that book cover would get people to pause and at least read it. It wouldn't get lost in the shuffle. It would be something that people would talk about. And then the story reinforces the other components of the cover. So it's not like you buy a book, the cover's great, you read it, and it sucks. Everyone that's read the book goes, wow, man, that is awesome. What a wild, wild ride. And I learned so many lessons from the field guide. This is crazy. So trusting your gut is just paramount, in my opinion.
Yeah. What would you say drives and motivates you today?
So much different stuff. I mean, I think the biggest part is just it's just really being a good dad to my kids. I think one of the biggest things when you're growing, you think success is money or fame or awards. And as things are taken away from you, you understand that the people that are with you with money and fame and awards, they ain't with you when things aren't going well. They leave. And so you're left with what's important. And what I realized was the real definition of success comes down to the four things money cannot buy: time, your health, your soul, and your children's love. You can't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you meet some of these people that are successful. And yes, we all need to make money. We got to pay bills. Kids are expensive. They're playing club sports, whatever. But if you don't have those four, you had nothing. And in your lowest low, or in my lowest lows, you look around, you don't care what car you're driving when you're dealing with the greatest failures of your life. You do care about your kid's smile. You do care about spending time with the people you love. You do care about having great, amazing time, not being rushed, not doing things you don't care about, having purpose. You do feel the soul component, like, what am I actually here for? And am I living into that? And then the health side, the great quote, a healthy mind can't live in an unhealthy body. I think that's the first thing that everybody just lets go. Oh, I'm busy. I can't work out today. I'm just so busy. I'm just so stressed. Well, everybody's job is to make good decisions. Working out tests your resolve to do hard things. It releases all of the positive chemicals and hormones in your body so that your body's always growing physically and mentally in the right direction. And so understanding and keeping those in balance while I continue to find what my limit is, that's kind of what drives me. It's what's possible without sacrificing the things that matter most. Can I be the superhero my kids think I am into my 40s, which I'm in my 40s? And again, where is my limit? And when I find it, am I comfortable staying within it? I think that's really interesting at this stage of my life. Whereas when I was younger, it was like, build this brand, make it huge, exit, be this super rich person with a giant exit under his belt, repeat. And I'm willing to let everything else fall to the wayside for the most part. That's not how it works for me anyway.
Greg, when the setback with Tezame happened about 2 years ago, you weren't financially ruined. You didn't lose everything, did you, as far as personally, or?
I lost a lot for sure. Me and my brothers refied our homes. We put
Mm.
so much cash in the business at the end to try and save it. So we were out a lot of money. And then in the restructuring process, those negotiations were very, very aggressive. And so that required some more of our cash. And so, no, we were not ruined financially, but that was only because we took quick, aggressive, necessary steps to start other business ventures and make them profitable and scale them quickly and make sure that we just didn't have all of our eggs in one basket. So if I hadn't have done that, I would have been completely ruined financially.
Besides trusting your gut, you've grown these new companies now, like you said, very fast in a short period of time, in let's say under 2 years. What have you done there? For example, if someone's listening to this, what advice can they take besides trusting your gut that you've used here with these new companies going forward?
Well, in terms of development of product, I guess it kind of comes back down to trusting your gut again. But I think the other component is just common sense. There's a great quote that common sense is genius dressed up in work clothes. It's the best quote on common sense ever. And, for the alcohol business we're about to launch, it was, okay, I have this great idea. Let's see if it tastes good. It tastes good. Let's see if it exists. It doesn't. Let's give it to random people, not tell them what it is or what we're doing, test their reactions. They love it. And so then you go, okay, we're going to now move forward, invest money, design a brand, commit to launching this thing. So there's a gut component, there's a common sense component. Then there is the component of being ruthless and disciplined with the process. And what I mean by that, so many people get emotional about wanting to launch something. And I know that I did. I'm not emotional anymore. So let's use the book as the best example. I didn't plan on writing a book. When I started putting the story together, my performance coach was like, dude, this should be a book. I'm like, I don't know yet. And so each stage of the book process, I wasn't fully committed to it being a book. I'll see what the editor says. I'll see what the publisher says. I was prepared at any point for it to fail. I was unemotional to the outcome or to the success of it. And because of that, I took a very disciplined approach to that project management workflow. And as it kept unfolding, it kept coming back with the right feedback that this is going to work. This is going to be successful. You need to continue to allocate time and resources to making it happen. And so I think when you're looking at young entrepreneurs and young business owners, they get so emotionally attached to the one thing because their identity and their ego is attached to this one thing working. I know from experience. Brothers that took their mom's salad dressing and built it into this giant thing. We had to make it work. And when it didn't work, it really hurt. There were signs along the way that we were forcing it. And so for the young business people of the world, it's be okay with the outcome, give it a full effort, be organized, be disciplined, think outside of the box, but don't swim upstream if you don't need to. Be okay with going with the white water, because if you're flowing with the current properly, everything's going to be easier, and you can actually spend your time on the things that matter versus having to make it 1,000 times more difficult like I did.
Greg, with your past experience and now with these new ventures, how do you feel about investors or partners? Has it changed as far as how you thought before?
Yes. Yes. I have a business partner or new venture filter. And I went back and I looked at everyone that broke my trust, that backstabbed me, that wasn't a great investor. And I figured out the traits, the common traits that were visible when I went back and looked with clear eyeballs. And then I looked at the excuses that I made for their behavior, ignoring it, pretending not to notice it. And so then I created a filter that I run people through, or I run ventures through, that have very clear answers. And when those answers come out, I have a report card. And the report card gives me the grade. Whether or not I choose to accept the grade, that's my own problem. But I at least have a baseline understanding of who I'm getting into bed with. And it honestly has prevented me from going into 3 different businesses in the past 18 months. And they sounded amazing. And I loved the concept. But when I put the person through the filter, 3 things came back out of 10 that were not good. And so I said, no, I'm good. So I take a very different approach to working with people than I once did, because when you're building something from nothing, you're just so excited that people want to be a part of it. Oh my God. Yes, of course you can give me $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in retrospect, if you look at who they are from a character perspective, or if I go back and I look at each one of those people, yes, we had probably 20 investors that were amazing human beings. Then we had like 32 that were horrible. And I knew they were horrible going into it. But you don't really connect. I didn't really connect the dots at the time. Right? You're assuming, well, we have a board and they're tiny shareholder and they have a little bit of money in it. It's not big. And let me tell you something. You only want to be working with people that make you smile. That's it. Life is too short to be dealing with people that when the phone rings, you look and you go, oh, I do not want to take this phone call.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, I'm not doing that.
I love, Greg, how you grade your investors and partners. Because a lot of times the business is at a point, it needs money. It needs to feed itself, right? And you're like, okay, VC, whatever it's coming from, let's go. What are the terms? Okay, we need the cash.
Yeah. Well, and I did that, right? I did that during the salad dressing business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that anymore. And I will not ever do it ever again. That doesn't mean I don't have investors. And that doesn't mean I don't have business partners, because I do in a couple different ventures that I'm in. But they pass my test. I put them through the filter. And yes. Okay, cool. Got it.
What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today?
just allocation of time, making sure that I'm properly allocating my time correctly to the right area and not sacrificing time for the things that matter most. It's a balance, where it's gotta maintain health, gotta make sure my soul stays intact, gotta make sure that I'm using my time properly and how I want to use it. And then I have to make sure that my kids still love me and I'm giving them the time they need and I'm focused and I'm present. I think that's the biggest thing. The precious present. I have to make sure that stays intact. So that's it. Allocation of time.
Coming to an end here soon. You mentioned several times throughout this conversation about your performance coach. Have you had like any mentors, whether it's a performance coach or someone else, and what'd you learn from them?
Didn't have any mentors, unfortunately. I call people came into my life in short spurts. So I call it I had momentary mentors where I learned a little something from them that I liked, and then they left. And so that's how I did it. I did it with a mix of observation, reflection, taking notes, and reading books. And so I didn't really have a specific mentor as it applied to business that made my journey easier. That did not exist. I wish I did have that, but I did not.
Okay. What does the next couple of years look like? What are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about this book. I think it's really fun. I've never done anything like this. So that's really interesting and cool. I'm really interested in the continued scale of the businesses that I'm in because they bring me joy. They're fun. They're working well. They're impactful. And so really just going into this next chapter with open eyeballs on what I'm working on, what its lifespan is, how much runway does it have or not have, and seeing where the whitewater takes me.
Being involved with all these different businesses, how do you allocate your time?
A filter.
Okay.
You look at it with open eyes of, okay, this is the size of this business. This is the potential upside. Here's the runway of it. Here's what is required. And you put values on all of those things because usually what's probably going to happen with most people is the small, young, new brand thing is chaos. So it's going to want most of your time. You can't give it. You have to give disciplined, appropriate time to that venture and put the right people in place so that it's not all required on you. And so that's how I look at the things where, okay, this thing is very large and very profitable, and I need to make sure that it continues to be so. So it's going to get my time. That's how I do it.
That's great. When you're not busy working and running all the different businesses, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
I don't really have a lot of free time, honestly. I have 4 kids and they're all playing club sports and I coach a bunch of teams too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my weekends, I am the most positive, fit Uber driver that's ever lived. So I'm just driving my kids to their practices and their games. And so really how I decompress is I live on a farm. So I just spend time. I go on walks, play pickleball, hunt, literally just watch football with my kids right now because it's the fall. Just do super low key stuff. Dinner with the family, little stuff like that. Nothing crazy.
Sure. Greg, if people want to learn more about you and where can they go find out more, or where can they get undressed?
So the website is gregoryvetter.com. And then the book you can buy on Amazon. So if you just look up Undressed by Gregory Vetter, it's on Amazon. You can pre-order it. It launches November 25th. And my personal website will give all the information on the other business websites and stuff that I'm on. And I'm on social media again for the first time in 7 years. So you can look me up, GL Vetter, which is interesting.
What made you decide to go back to social media?
Marketing.
Okay.
For the book, a lot of just general business type insights that I'm now sharing. And so it was just required. I had been off for a long time to focus on the business and everything else. And I viewed it very much as a distraction. And it probably still is to a certain degree, but now there's more strategy behind why I'm back on.
Is there a possibility of another book in the future?
Yeah, I think I'll write another one, maybe two.
Okay.
But we'll see. We got to get this one out to the world and see how it all shakes out and see where it takes me.
Sure. How was that experience, by the way, as far as writing the book?
It was wild. It's long. Initially, it's really exciting, but then you get into the final editorial phase where you have to physically read every page and edit every page multiple times. I also read the audiobook myself. And so you become numb to it.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know if the book was interesting anymore because I had read it 25 times and read it 10 times. And so when I started giving it to people to read and they were coming back and going, wow, this book's really awesome, I was like, oh, that's cool. Because I don't even know anymore. I'm so numb to what I wrote. I don't even know if it's interesting.
Wow. Greg, thank you so much for your time and coming to the show today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, same. Great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. Take care.
All right, bye.